One of the things that we often don't think about when you're talking about investment, we all, obviously want to make sure that it's returning something to us in terms of money. There's a lot of people who choose to invest with their heart, and people will choose to buy something because they're ultimately seeing that at the end of their career, it might be where they want to retire. And that's okay too, if they're not thinking that it's necessarily got to make them money. So investing with your heart is actually not a bad idea too, if it's part of your long-term plan.
But are you thinking about, well, okay, down the track I might want to
live there.
I want to relocate to the country.
Yep.
I want to relocate to the coast. I would encourage you not to buy that property now, because sea change or tree change is not going to go up in value at the same rate as an investment in a capital city such as, say, Sydney or Melbourne. And I mean, carefully purchased investment will go up a hell of a lot longer in the time between now and when you relocate. And so if you buy well and purely investment, down the track you can buy something a hell of a lot better in some of those areas. You'll have so many more options, and you might not actually decide to move to Noosa. You might go and move to, you might move to Torquay. So rather than lock yourself in, you can actually have your money working harder for you in the short term, and you can buy something better when you retire.
It's funny, the conversation of how you're going with versus that emotion, because sometimes I think it might be in the between as well. To understand the area that you're looking at, the growth and seeing things, if you're of a certain age as a demographic, the big baby boomer age group that's going through, that's changing the whole market, they're looking to maybe change these coastal cities, like in Sydney, Newcastle and Wollongong is getting that coastal flow-on change of those people with money who can't afford to buy a waterfront property in Sydney. And that's happening around the country as well. So I think it's a little bit of in between, looking at with the emotion of maybe planning for ahead, but don't go so literal into that, I want that town or I want that city, because as you're saying, investment growth areas are quite different. I think it's worth looking at, where big development's going on. New big hospitals, employment and things like that as well can affect your investment. But for me, I always go back to something visual, and it's still looking at the property that I can enhance and alter its value straight away.
I think it's definitely life stage. So I absolutely agree with you in terms of people who are starting out, who wouldn't have a clue really where they're going to end up. I think that we see a lot of customers, a lot of people come through. I speak to a lot of people who are sort of baby boomers, and exactly to your point, they can't necessarily afford to buy in Sydney. They need to live there for a while, and they're choosing to, say, rent. But then they are investing where they ultimately feel like they're going to end up. And I think that, accommodating that and catering for that sort of situation at that stage of life is something that we see quite often.